Hello friends, how are you doing? Today we are diving into a fundamental topic, static variables and methods, and how they differ from instance variable. Some of you might be thinking, duh, isn't this just like Shalini, the imaginary character in my presentation? If that's you, I encourage you to stick around until the end of this video. You will discover some interesting facts. So, in this particular scenario, Meera, in a casual chat, asked Shalini, "Hey, do you know the difference between a static variable and method and an instance method and variable?" Shalini rolled her eyes and said, "Duh, everyone knows that. It's super easy. Let me tell you." First of all, a static variable or method can be called directly using class name, whereas an instance variable requires an instance of a class. Second of all, a static method can access only static variables within same class. On the other hand, an instance method can access both static method and variables. Third, static method and variable are allowed only in outer class. And last but not the least, static variables are not transmitted as part of the view state for a visualforce page. Mira nodded and said, "Interesting. That's really good, right? But do you know why?" Shalini looked confused. What? What do you mean by why? Mira smiled and said, "Allow me to explain." So then Mira started with the first scenario. That is, why static method or variables not allowed in inner class. So when we write a particular class and we define an inner class, and if we write a static variable inside an inner class, and if we try to save this one, then we will get this error message: static can only be used on fields of a top level. So let me comment out this one and let me tell you why it's like this. An inner class in Salesforce cannot exist independently and require the outer class to define it. What does that mean? When we want to access inner class, we can't just use inner static versus non-static demo. We can't use it like this. Let me show you that one. We can't write it like this. If we write it like this, it will not able to identify this particular class. So inner class does not present, I mean, that cannot exist independently, and it required outer class. This is the outer class, and then dot inner class. We need to define it like this to access inner class. Since an inner class is dependent on the outer class and not an independent entity, it cannot have static variables or method, as static members belong to an independent class rather than a dependent structure. Another reason is accessing an inner class requires an instance of the outer class, that is this one. However, static members are called on a class without requiring an instance. This conflict further reinforces why static member and variable cannot exist in an inner class. So I hope that is clear, like why we cannot access or we cannot define a static variable or method inside an inner class. Now the second thing, why static method in Salesforce cannot access the instance member variable values of its class. What does that mean? That means this is my static method, right? Because I have used static keyword before this particular method. Now, if I try to, suppose, let me comment out this one and let me show you. I commented out this one and let me copy paste it and let me remove this one. And then I try to access employee name, which is static variable. So no problem on that one. And I try to access salary. Salary is nothing but an instance variable. And non-static method, that is nothing but a method, that is it's not an static method. So if we try to access a static method and a static variable inside a static method, it will not give us any error message. But if we try to access an instance variable or a non-static method, then it will give us a error message like variable does not exist and non-static method cannot be referenced from a static context. Why so? Because in Salesforce, static methods belong to the class itself, not to any specific instance. Instance means like when we create an object of the class, that is like this. Suppose we created it like this, ABC equals to new this one. So ABC is an instance of a class or is an object of the class. So in static in Salesforce, static methods belong to the class itself, not to any specific instance of the class. This means they are loaded into memory once and shared among all instances. Second of all, a static method runs in the context of the class, not an object. Since instance variable belong to an object, the static method has no way of knowing which object's variable to access. Another reason is encapsulation principle. Allowing static method to access instance variable would break encapsulation principle as it would imply a method that does not belong to an instance can still manipulate instance specific data, which is not allowed as part of encapsulation principle. Last but not the least, memory allocation. So let me explain the memory allocation with this slide. So when we create an instance variable of a particular class, it actually created that instance and stored the instance in the heap memory level. So suppose I have created object 1 and I have provided the company name as ABC and salary as 10,000. So that will be created on the heap memory and it will store there. Another instance, suppose object 2 I have created for the same class, and I have named company name is equals to XYZ and salary equals to 20,000. So each object, whichever I have created, in this case object 1 and object 2, has its own copy of instance variable. If I do any changes in object 1, it will not impact object 2 and vice versa. So changes in any specific instance variable will not affect any other instances. But in case of static variable or method, it store the data in the static memory, that is in the class level, not in the heap memory level. So the static variable or method does not have any access to heap memory. They are not able, because they are not in the same memory level. They will not able to understand what is the instance variable is. So that's why they are not able to access those instance variable from static method. So static method, whenever we initialize one class or whenever we call a static um, code block, it will create the static instances and it will store it in static memory. So once it is created, that particular instance is shared across all the instances and only one copy exists in the memory. If we change the value of that particular variable in any one places, it will impact all the places because only one copy exists in the memory. No matter how many object we created, object 1, object 2, object 3, doesn't matter. For as in our scenario, employee name is a static variable. So in that case, 1, 2, 3, all the instance of the class shared only one value of that particular or only one copy of that particular static variable. Now, there is another type of memory as well, if you want to know, that is like a addition. That is class metadata memory. Class metadata memory is nothing but it stores the class definition and method definition. Like what we have written in the class that will compiled and the bytecode will be stored in the class metadata memory. This memory does not store any actual variable values. It's just store the blueprint of the class. It does not store any value of either static memory or heap memory. So this is completely different. This method class metadata memory or method area is completely different from class level or instance level or static memory and heap memory. It's completely different. So because of this as well, as the static variable is having static memory that is different from heap memory, so that is one reason that static variable are not able to access instance variable. Now, one question may come into your mind that if that is so, but in my implementation for some reason I want to access instance variable from static method. How can I able to do that one? To do that one, you must explicitly pass an instance of the class. That is, let me show you that one. So in this particular case, let me delete this one. Let me uncomment this class, this particular function that is a static. So this is a static method, right? And because we use the static keyword, to access salary, which is an instance variable, And a static method, we pass a instance or object of this particular class. So we pass the object of this particular class, and using that one we can able to access this instance variable and non-static method. Now another thing, that is why static variable are not transmitted as part of view state. Because view state stores instance variable, not static one. Static variable belong to the class itself, not a specific instance or object of the class. So they are not stored in the view state. That is why static variable are reset between request each time a new request is made. Maybe by clicking a button that causes a page to refresh. Static member also reinitialize rather than retaining previous value. In LWC component, though we do not have any view state, but whenever we click on button, static variable are reinitialized rather than retaining previous value. So that is some interesting facts about static variable and method. Let me add couple of more points to this one. A static variable defined in a trigger. Suppose this is a trigger. So this is the static variable. Now this static variable does not retain its value between different trigger context within the same transaction, such as between before insert or before update and after insert or after update invocation. Instead, to retain the value, we need to define the static variable in a class so that the trigger can access this class member variable and check their static values. Let me explain it using a demo. So in this case, we have created one static variable, that is this one, and this one, this count is already present in this particular class. This is nothing but this count variable. Now in the trigger is before is update, we are updating the static variable, we are increasing the value and we are printing it. Same for this one non-static, we are increasing the value and we are updating this one, correct? Okay, let uh, okay, yeah. And also in case of is after and is update, we are again updating the variable and we are printing it. Now you might be thinking that it should be same, like if it is 1 then inside this block it will be 2, and once it got updated to 2, then in is insert is update it should be 3 because again we are updating it. Same for static count. Static count we have initialized it as 0, so when we are updating it, it should come as 1, and then in this is after it should come as 2. So let's see what is happening. So let me go to this one and let me edit this. Suppose I have edited it to 500 and I just save it. And let me refresh my debug log. And I got my debug log. Okay. Now let me, this is the trigger variable. Okay. I will search with this one. So see, this is nothing but my before update, correct? Before update. So in the before update, we updated the value from 1 to 2. So we updated the value from 1 to 2. So 1 to 2, it updated to 2 and it printed. Same for the static variable that is defined in this class. Count is 1 because initialized as 0, then we updated here. So it is 1. Now let's check what happened in the after update. In the after update, what happened? It still remained 2. It should be 3, right? Because we are updating it again. But see, as the context change for this trigger, because this is before is update, so it got reset again. It got reset to 1 again, and then again when it came to here, rather than printing 3, it printed 2 only. But in case of this particular variable, it updated to 2. Previously it was 1, now it is 2. One more thing, you might be thinking that because we have written it inside this one, that's why it is happening. So let me put it here and delete it from here. Okay, let me save it again. Okay, it got saved. So let me go to the debug logs. I will delete the debug logs and I will again update it to 30,000 and save it and refresh the page. And we got our debug logs. We will search with this one. So it is 2, that is fine because we have defined it as 1. So it is updated here. It got updated to 2 and this one from 0 to 1. And again in after update, rather than updating to 2, it got again printed 2 because it got reset within the different trigger context, but this one retained the value and updated from 1 to 2. So that is why uh, in trigger does not write a static variable because it does not retain its value between different trigger context. One more thing that I want to mention about static variable, that is whenever it's not about static variable but it's about an instance variable. In the instance variable, a local variable name are evaluated before class names. If a local variable has the same name as a class name, the local variable hides method and variable of the class on the class of the same name. Suppose in this case, we created a class called database. So database.insert, we all knew about that one. But if I uncomment this one, then I will get an error message. So if I try to save it, it will say method does not exist because it is not able to, it is hide the methods. If the name is same, then it is going to hide the methods and variable. That's why. So keep this in mind as well. So that is all about today's session about static variable and static method and instance variable and instance method. Hope you like this video. If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video. See you in next video.